All right, we are live. Let's wait, I guess, until we got more people watching. I'm gonna share this to Facebook real quick until people start joining. Let's see here. Paste. Come on, you all. Go ahead and ask me your questions. Ask me any question at all, and I will answer it live. Come on, guys, don't be shy. Ask me your questions. Let's see. All right, I shared it to Facebook. All right, excellent. So PC asks, do you do regular passive stretches as a way to gain flexibility? Regular passive stretches. So I'm assuming that you mean like static stretching, like touching my toes for 30 seconds at a time, etc. And the answer is yes. So static stretching, or what you call passive stretching, is flexibility 101, and it's extremely effective. It's probably the most effective way of gaining flexibility that there is. And there's a reason why pretty much every single stretching and flexibility book is built upon a foundation of passive stretching. So for flexibility, yeah, passive stretching is an excellent way to gain flexibility. And for people who don't really stretch very often, or who lack mobility or lack flexibility, you're going to have to start somewhere, and you're not going to be able to just jump into ballistic stretching. Where ballistic stretching is where, let's say I squat down and I spread my, I push my hips open and I, do that, like the Goku stretch, like bouncing into a stretch, bouncing in and out of a stretch. Most people can't do that. So you want to start off with static stretching, obviously. All right, 5 people have joined. You guys ask me your questions down below. So other things for flexibility and mobility that I like are definitely, I do like ballistic stretching. I like active stretching. And I also like foam rolling and massage. And I think sauna is great too. All right, so Michael Linton asks, what is the best diet to drop weight? So this is interesting. I'm getting a lot of diet and weight loss and fitness related questions, but I am a fitness trainer, have been a fitness trainer for over 6 years now, and a strength and conditioning coach for some athletes. So I suppose these are good questions to be asking me, of course, although not the typical health science questions I usually get asked. What is the best diet to drop weight? So there's multiple ways to induce weight loss that don't all have to involve consciously restricting calories. So the best diet to drop weight. So first of all, it is true the best diet to drop weight is a diet that you'll stick to. That is the first thing. There's a reason, and the second thing is that low carb diets work very, very well for fat loss. And I posted a number of studies, including meta-analysis, intervention trials, and large population studies, where they actually show unrestricted low carb diets can induce just as much, if not more, weight loss than restricted calorie controlled high carb diets. And if you're interested in those can be found in the research section of the highlights on my Instagram page at Wolfgang Lozana. But at the same time, it is true that caloric deficits will induce weight loss. We know this from metabolic ward studies. And obviously, if you just look at anybody who, takes a calorie restriction approach to dropping weight, they inevitably drop overall body mass. Now, the key here, though, is, if your aim is to be healthy, you don't want to just drop weight. You want to be, unless you're training for a fight or a sport with a weight class, what you want is to increase your lean mass and decrease your fat mass. And obviously, you want to either maintain your bone mass or increase bone mass. When you restrict calories, your body starts to break down all tissues, including your muscle. And to a certain extent, it could break down bone mass, but not significantly enough for you to find out in a DEXA scan, hopefully, because that would be terrible. But also fat mass. Now, ketogenic diets have a interesting effect, and so I'll tell you this. So there's a lot of anecdotes online, a lot of people who have posted body fat scans eating in a caloric surplus while somehow losing body fat and maintaining lean mass on ketogenic diets. And I myself ran an experiment. I got my body fat scanned like a couple months before starting keto, before starting carnivore back in 2018, where I was on a high carb diet. And I was eating 3,000 calories a day consistently and doing intense strength and conditioning and weightlifting and hypertrophy work. I was 195 pounds, and I was at I don't remember, 16% body fat or something. And then after 6 months on a ketogenic diet, I lost 10 pounds of 10 pounds of fat mass and maintained the same amount of lean mass, which is fascinating considering I wasn't doing a lot of muscle building exercises at the time. And muscle building exercises, hypertrophy training, is required to not only to stimulate muscle growth, but also to maintain lean mass in a period of weight loss. Now, at the same time, I was also eating 1,000 calorie surplus. So when I was on a high carb diet, I was eating 3,000 calories on average, give or take. I was 10 pounds heavier of fat mass. But on the ketogenic protocol, I was eating well over 4,000 calories a day and not doing the same intensity of strength and conditioning, nor was I doing hypertrophy work. And somehow I still was progressively losing fat mass, and I maintained my lean mass. So, you could say a whole bunch of things that, maybe I was burning more calories or something. But point here is that there seems to be special benefits for fat loss and body recomposition from restricting carbohydrates or controlling carbohydrates. And obviously eating adequate protein is essential as well. So to put that into a simpler term, if you want to eat junk food, then if it fits your macros, caloric restriction. But most people, they can't handle feeling hungry all the time. Even if they're allowed to eat all their favorite junk food, caloric restriction doesn't address hunger hormones the way ketogenic diets do. And ketogenic diets literally they train your body to burn its own body fat as fuel. So your body's getting its caloric energy from body fat. And then, of course, stearic acid from butter tends to have a independent fat loss effect, which a lot of people are experimenting with. And so intermittent fasting is another very popular option. I've had clients who have used intermittent fasting. I had one who was 315 pounds when he started training with me. And we did vigorous training sessions 3 times a week that included a lot of high intensity interval training and stuff. However, the guy did not want to track his food. He would refuse to track his food, to restrict his food, to control his food, or to do a proper diet of any kind. And And when you work with clients, okay, when you're a personal trainer or when you're a health coach, you have to be flexible. You have to have a variety of tools in the toolbox depending on the individual. And so, I had just, educated him, as I do all my clients, on a variety of different protocols. He ended up doing alternate day fasting, where he would fast for an entire day, and then he would just go and binge eat at a Korean barbecue restaurant. But he was okay as long as he maintained the fasting schedule. And he only fasted, he did alternate day fasts like 3 times a week. And he was able to eat whatever he wanted as long as he maintained the fasting. And the interesting thing is, even though he broke his fast with a bunch of white rice and sugar-coated Korean barbecue and whatnot, his hunger hormones seemed to regulate to his fasting schedule, to where he would naturally fast the entire day, come in for a workout drinking like a Bang energy drink, and he would kill the workout. But as long as he had enough salt, because he was fucking up at first, and he was getting dizzy, getting weak and lethargic. And of course, I told him, Guy, you're fasting, you need salt. So he would take a teaspoon of salt, within an hour before our workouts, and he would feel fine. And he started to up his salt intake during his fast, and he did just fine. So there's a variety of different ways to drop overall weight, and especially to drop fat mass. And so you can pick and choose. It's going to depend on you. So John 37 asks, bulking up, what's the best food? So again, you guys, 6 people joining. Ask your questions down in the comments, and I will definitely answer them. So John 37 asks, bulking up, what's the best foods? So it depends on what you mean by bulking up. So if you're looking to increase muscle mass, it's my experience, my observation, my opinion, and not only my opinion based on experience and observation, but also based on science, that you don't actually have to get fat to gain muscle mass. Now, if you are a tall, skinny kid, you're going to gain muscle mass, the same amount of muscle mass, the same rate as most other people following the same protocol you would. The only thing is you won't notice it as drastically as someone like me, who is, 5 foot, like what they call a mesomorph, but really I have a symmetrical body or whatever. So basically, people with shorter limbs, their muscle mass is going to look more pronounced, and so it's going to appear that they're easy gainers. And tall, skinny guys, they can gain the same amount of muscle, but it'll appear as if they're hard gainers, when in reality, it's just because they have long limbs, and so their muscles are more evenly distributed all the way throughout their body or all throughout their limb. So they may have the same weight of muscle mass on their bicep, for example, but it won't look as big and bulky as mine. But at the same time, if you want to gain weight fast, let's just put it that way, and you feel like you have trouble eating enough food, or if you weigh your food out and you track calories and you're working with a nutritionist who is advising you to eat more calories. So that's a really interesting topic there, where basically if you're eating, healthy foods like brown rice and quinoa and chicken breast, and you are a tiny guy who has a problem of undereating, and you have a problem of undereating, you're going to want to eat easily digestible foods like jasmine white rice, not fortified white rice, because the added iron can cause hemochromatosis and iron overload. And I think that's a sneaky problem in our society. A lot of people probably have, but they don't know. So jasmine rice, bananas, and then, those types of high glycemic load carbs that are generally not healthy, they can definitely aid in at least increasing your appetite in the short term. And they're easy on the digestive system, so you can get the most caloric bang for your digestive buck, if that makes sense. And instead of eating chicken breasts, you're going to want to eat the chicken with the skin. You want to make it as delicious as possible. You're going to want to eat food that's easy to digest and that tastes good. And so if you want to try to make it healthy and get the calories you need, look into the principles of Stan Efferding's vertical diet. The vertical diet, basically, it has a vertical axis where you get all your calories from jasmine rice or white rice and red meat, but then you get all your micronutrients on the horizontal axis from easy to digest, like plant foods and things that have all of your micronutrients, as well as from the red meat as well. I think that's a good approach for somebody who has a problem of under eating and they need to increase their appetite. Because it's true that your appetite will regulate to, like, if you don't eat on a regular basis and you generally are an under eater, your appetite will down regulate and you'll have trouble eating more food. And I had this problem for a long time. Interestingly enough, when I was on the high carb diet for a long time, I mean, when I was even with jasmine rice, but especially with like potatoes and sweet potatoes and these fibrous foods, the more fiber you eat, the harder it's going to be for you to pack in the calories. So hopefully that answered your question. I can go on and on about that. Let's see. So I'm going to answer the herniated disc question in a second, but I want to get to this one first. Michael Linton asks, should I do a colon cleanse before starting a weight loss regimen? No, there's no reason to do a colon cleanse. In fact, if you've been following my YouTube channel for a while, you'll know that, consuming these any high fiber substance at all, or trying to eat as much fiber as you can, for example, to boost health, a lot of times actually causes adverse health issues. Too much fiber can cause constipation, and actually, I believe it's a main contributing factor towards Crohn's disease in some populations of people. Most colon cleanses are going to be like a mixture of psyllium husk and black walnut hull, and there's going to be a lot of questionable ingredients in there, and cleansing of any kind. So first of all, I'm not one of those stubborn, health people who just say anything against the mainstream is quackery. But I can tell you, as somebody who was vegan for an entire year, and I did like a raw fruit diet back in 2014, a lot of that crap, like cleansing and detoxing and whatnot, it has some validity to it as far as people who have liver problems, gallbladder problems and whatnot, because the liver does have a multiple stage detox mechanism that all medical doctors are probably well versed in. Your colon is basically going to attempt to purge undigested food and plant matter, such as fibrous plants and things like that, whatever. Your colon is going to try its best to purge waste as efficiently as possible. If you feel like you're backed up, constipated, because most cleanses, like colon cleanses, are just laxatives, senna, right? Drink some senna tea, if you're constipated. But if you're about to do weight loss, I just don't understand why someone would even think that they need a colon cleanse to begin weight loss. I don't see the correlation. And for general health purposes, like I actually had a client who was, who had some bowel issues, and it turns out they're eating a lot of chia seeds and stuff like that. And I had a problem where, if you're familiar with my journey, I had irritable bowel syndrome that was caused by these fibrous plant foods and things. Look, if you feel backed up, you don't need a colon cleanse. You need to remove the foods that are backing you up in the first place. And I have plenty of videos on that. If you're interested in that diet, ask me in the comments and I'll tell you about it. But I'm going to get on to the rest of these questions. So Timothy Jenkins asks, can you heal a herniated disc? So I'm going to be honest with you. You know, I study extensively a wide range of topics, especially in particular on how to reverse and heal disease. But herniated discs are not something that I study in particular. You know, that's something I really should start to look at, because a lot of the clients I've been getting lately, it seems like, you know, I'm dealing with a more injured population on a more regular basis, not all the time, but more often now. So I should look into that. But I'll tell you this much, Timothy, is that from what I understand and what I've seen, so first of all, definitely get a professional opinion. You know, and if it hurts to walk or if it hurts to do anything, you definitely don't want to be doing it. But most of the crap that I've gone to doctors for, you know, again, if you know my health journey, you'll know this already. Most of the crap that most people go to doctors for, doctors tell them there's no cure, there's no way you can heal it on your own, there's no alternative, you have to get surgery, blah, blah, blah. But time and time again, you know, I found with my psoriasis and my irritable bowel syndrome and my mysterious anxiety disorder that I had, and a whole host of other issues, you know, being diagnosed with, like, I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole, but most of the time you can heal things that doctors say you cannot heal. I can't give you an answer on the herniated disc because I have not researched it. I'm not going to be like those guys who pretend to know everything. But I'll tell you most things, even skeletal issues that doctors say you cannot heal on your own, that even things like gum recession. There's been cases of people actually growing back gum tissue to a certain extent, despite many dentists saying that it's physically impossible. And I made a video just kind of talking about the main cause of most dental issues earlier. So let's see, you know, I have a friend who put his cancer into remission on a ketogenic diet, you know, kept it out of remission for years. His lymphoma, or it wasn't lymphoma, it was leukemia. What the fuck? Okay, so Timothy Jenkins again asks, what's your opinion on protein shakes? What's your opinion on protein shakes? So protein shakes are mostly good to supplement protein. Because they're a protein supplement. They're not necessary for anything whatsoever. A better recommendation would be eat a steak if you can afford it. If not, eat ground beef. A close second would be wild-caught salmon and or, you know, like tuna, mackerel, or pork. Okay, pork is a close second because it has a better fatty acid composition than poultry, but beef has the best fatty acid composition, whether it's grain-fed or grass-fed, doesn't matter. Very low linoleic acid content. Otherwise, yeah, like, I mean, okay, so protein shakes, if you're on the go and you don't have time to eat, protein shakes can be good. I like, you know, so I for a long time did bulletproof coffee with protein powder in the morning, because the first thing I do when I wake up is I go to the gym and I train. I do my strength and conditioning, and then sometimes I'll do jiu-jitsu right after. And so, especially when I'm keto adapted, I'll just fast, or I'll have coffee blended with protein powder, and then like some coconut oil or some C8 MCT oil, and maybe some butter. So that is a good breakfast replacement, since I don't have time to eat a solid meal and it'll digest faster. But if you just eat protein shakes throughout the day, not a good idea. You don't need them for muscle gain. They're better than a BCAA supplement. BCAA supplements, I believe personally, are useless. Protein shakes are a better alternative. Mostly if you need to consume more protein throughout the days. But like, also if you don't have a good enough appetite, like if your appetite's super low, you can use protein shakes as and combine it with heavy cream and more calorically dense foods to get the protein you need and increase the calories in an easy to digest and easy to consume way for people who need to eat more calories and more protein but don't have the stomach to do so. A lot of people have trouble getting enough protein in throughout the day. They can't eat, 1 pound of red meat for girls or 2 pound of red meat for guys. So, in order to get 1 gram per pound of lean mass, a protein shake makes it easier. But yeah, there's nothing special about protein shakes. Immune globulins and other, colostrum and things, but I don't know how significant that really is. Junior Grande 123 asks, what can I do to prevent rhabdomyolysis? Don't train yourself to death. So rhabdomyolysis, for those who don't know, most probably do know rhabdo. Basically, it's where you train your body or you train a particular muscle generally beyond its point of capacity to train, essentially within a given training session. And you hammer that muscle so hard that it starts to break down amino acids into the bloodstream and creates metabolic acidosis, essentially. And you can start to have, kidney stones, and this is a severe issue. You can die from it. And it's a medical condition. It's a severe medical condition. How to prevent it? If you're new to the gym, start slowly and don't hammer yourself to the point of extreme exhaustion. And you have to be pretty unconditioned and then go into a training session and hit it really hard in order to create that. There's some nutritional factors and lifestyle factors and possibly genetic factors that make you more susceptible to extreme rhabdomyolysis. But essentially, you just need to ease into a training program. I personally have been training harder than anybody I know for a long time. 4 to 5 hours, like 4 hours of jiu-jitsu training on top of 1 to 2 hours of strength and conditioning a day. During periods where I was doing intermittent fasting and ketogenic eating, I never experienced rhabdo. And jiu-jitsu is heavily glycolytic. It's almost like bench pressing and hip thrusting heavy weights over and over and over again is what you're doing when you're rolling with people in jiu-jitsu. But again, I've been doing crazy, intense conditioning workouts since 2012 pretty damn consistently. With the exception of when I was vegan for a year. I lost motivation and fell off the wagon. But yeah, so the point is I never got rhabdo from that. But yeah, there's a lot of cases of people who have, in particular in CrossFit circles. So go easy, get enough protein especially, and increase the intensity over time. There's a reason why we have scientific principles of exercise training, and there's a reason why we have scientific programs and tried and tested programs that you can follow. If you're worried about rhabdo and you're not confident in your body's ability to sustain activity, then you should definitely start slow, very slow. Okay, so Timothy Jenkins, can you live off steak and eggs for the rest of your life? And Bright Path asks a similar question, I believe. Will a diet purely of beef liver and large amounts of red meat do a good job of hitting all your vitamins, or do you think there are many benefits of adding foods such as eggs, seafood, or other organs? Okay, so I've made a lot of videos on this, and so I'm going to assume that you all might have just subscribed to me recently. You guys are new. Maybe you guys subscribed to me from my Frank DeFano critique video recently. But I made plenty of videos on this. Okay, so, and this is a great topic, and I'll make more and more videos on this because it's such a fascinating thing and blew my mind when I first realized this. Let's see. So first of all, so I'm going to answer, can you get adequate vitamins and minerals from red meat and liver, or how do you get adequate vitamins, minerals on a carnivore diet? And can you live on steak and eggs for the rest of your life? So first of all, what you do is entirely your choice. Don't take this as me recommending anything. But there's a number of cases of people living decades on carnivore diets. Now, you don't have to follow a carnivore diet to be healthy or to feel your best. Maybe as an experiment, a lot of people experience insane athletic performance, effortless fat loss, and well-being. And but the main benefit is remission of mysterious diseases that modern medicine can't solve. Autoimmune illness, digestive disorders, the list goes on. And so there's Owsley LeBear Stanley, lived on a carnivore diet consisting almost entirely of just muscle meat and fat for over 50 years, and he died at the age of 76 from a car accident, out of all things. Not heart disease, not cancer, although he did survive throat cancer. But he died after 50 years on a carnivore diet in a car accident. That is pretty good evidence that one person could survive eating almost entirely, muscle meat alone. Then you have Stefansson and their experiment where they put him in a metabolic ward for, I don't remember, I think it was 2 years or was it 2 months? And they measured his biomarkers and, his health over, in a metabolic ward or in a hospital inpatient setting. And they found that he did just fine, didn't have any adverse effects or anything like that from eating a diet of purely meat. But when they gave him too lean a meat, he had problems, and so they added back fat, and he did just fine. Then you do have you have Charlene Anderson, and you have what's the other guy? The other her husband or whatever, Charlene and whatever his name is, Anderson. You have Michael Freeze, who is the creator of the Principia Carnivora Facebook group, where there's many other long-term carnivores that share their experience on that group. You have Kelly Hogan. And then, of course, you have multiple societies who have lived a long time eating, obviously in extreme conditions, like the Inuit. And they were eating almost entirely, omega-3 fats from like whale blubber and whatnot. Their diet was extremely ketogenic macro-wise, but then they also had a genetic mutation that prevented them from entering ketosis. So there's a lot of evidence that I can talk about. Obviously, there's no long-term, lifelong study on any diet at all, other than people who have followed that diet, including populations and societies. Obviously, no sane person in a society who doesn't have like a strong reason to is going to follow an all-meat diet, which is why you don't see large populations doing it. So we don't have a lot of evidence on long-term health from eating a certain way or eating this way, carnivore. But things like Mediterranean diet, we have, isolated populations in the Mediterranean where they eat that way their entire life, and we see their health outcomes. The closest thing we have to that are the Inuit, are the Maasai, and then there's a couple of other populations that I read about in Sally Follin's book, Nourishing Diets, which I highly recommend everyone check out. Now, what I would say is it doesn't seem like there is any reason to suggest that we can't survive long-term eating, living on almost entirely, animal foods. Is it optimal? That's up for debate. I've actually experienced benefits supplementing with ascorbic acid. And there's a lot of other people who seem to have as well. I think that it's very possible that you can live on steak and eggs for your entire life. But you might develop an intolerance to it. A lot of people can't stand it after a while, but so you probably could, but I don't think a lot of people would unless they had to. And so the second part of this question, Will a diet purely of beef liver and large amounts of red meat do a good job of hitting all your vitamins, or do you think that there are many benefits to adding foods such as eggs, seafood, or other organs? Okay, so first of all, when we're talking about hitting all our vitamins, okay, so first of all, yes, to put it simply, it is a fact that you can get all of your vitamins and minerals from animal sources alone, and in particular, beef liver and large amounts of red meat. You can get everything except vitamin C. And when you're saying get all your vitamins, we're talking about the vitamins we think we need based on the RDI, or the recommendations from the government. So we're assuming that those are correct, and if that's the case, vitamin C is one that will fall short. And the only way to get that from animal sources is to eat, raw kidney and spleen. And even at that, there's not enough to, in reasonable amounts found in these organs to hit the RDI, right? The vitamin and mineral count that the government says we need. Now, the second part to that question is, okay, and so in chronometer, folate and vitamin B1 are the only things you can't get from red meat in large enough amounts, okay? But you can get that from beef liver. Now, if you add eggs to that, it's so much easier to get all of your folate and B1, because you'd have to eat about a pound of liver. And even then, I believe liver's lacking in B1. Actually, 4 ounces of liver provides you enough folate, but B1 is still going to be lacking. And I've actually obsessed over this for a while and meticulously tried to hit all my RDIs on the carnivore diet at one point. And I found the B1 obviously is easy to hit if you add certain seafood, and also pork. Pork is very high in B1, but it's also high in linoleic acid, but not too high. So maybe eating, 2 pounds of beef to get the magnesium and potassium, eating a pork chop and eating 4 ounces of liver, you probably hit everything except for vitamin C. And there's other things that are not tested for as much in food analysis tests, such as molybdenum and biotin. Molybdenum, though, there's a lot of question amongst nutrition researchers as to if you can get adequate amounts from animal foods. But there's also a question as to whether it's even essential or not. There's no actual symptoms of deficiency. So, in a lot of the nutrition testing, I made a whole video on this a couple of months ago, but a lot of the nutrition testing for recommended daily amounts and deficiency syndromes and things is really whack. I forget which vitamin it was. I think it was B1. There's a guy who tried to figure out the symptoms of B1 deficiency. And so he basically got a bunch of cruciferous vegetables, and he boiled them 3 times. He triple boiled them, and that was his entire diet for 4 weeks, as long as he could sustain it, because he had to quit the experiment early because of such extreme malnourishment. And the intention was to gauge B1 deficiency or B2 deficiency or something. And the problem with that is, obviously, if you're eating nothing but triple boiled cruciferous vegetables, you're going to be deficient in so much more than just an isolated B vitamin, right? So inducing a deficiency in a controlled manner is very hard. And generally, a lot of it's based on test tube studies where they're feeding a synthetic solution to a patient through a tube in the stomach. And, in the case of omega-6 or omega-3 deficiency, they found when they feed them nothing but soybean oil and their Soylent protein shake fortified, goop that they feed them through the feeding tube, that they develop inflammatory symptoms. And when they fortify the formula, they supplement it with omega-3, those problems go away. So yeah, I've made plenty of videos on that. So you have to take that with a grain of salt, the RDIs. But yeah, I don't think you're going to have any deficiency syndromes other than maybe vitamin C. And I say that now because I think a lot of the crappiness certain people feel might have to do with neurotransmitters such as norepinephrine and dopamine. It requires vitamin C as a cofactor. And that's something I've known long before I did the carnivore diet. And when I made videos about neurotransmitters and the catecholamine cascade and the cofactors involved in the process, you can find when you supplement ascorbic acid to any diet, you'll find a mood boosting effect. You'll find a relaxing effect, kind of like a cortisol lowering effect. And there's studies that actually show vitamin C seems to lower cortisol if you supplement it. And the other thing is gum problems. So initially people will notice their gums and teeth get better, but there's like a small subset of people that experience bleeding gums and worsening of gums on carnivore diet. I was actually one of them. And so part of that might be coffee if people are drinking more coffee, but another thing could be vitamin C. And so I think it's a good insurance policy to take ascorbic acid on the side. I don't think, and I think the only person who has like a fight, like he's putting up a good fight in the vitamin C debate is Paul Saladino. And he's had a debate on vitamin C with James D. Nicola Antonio, the Salt Fix guy. He's had a debate about vitamin C with quite a few people. And his arguments don't convince me fully. This idea that you don't need it and blah, blah, blah. Like maybe, whatever the argument is, I think it might be a good idea to supplement ascorbic acid unless you have an intolerance to it. But it might, there's thousands of people who don't find it necessary. So, hopefully I answered the question. Again, you guys keep asking your questions. If you have any other questions about, the carnivore diet, or whatever it was that I just mentioned, all of that, or recommended daily intake of nutrients, ask those questions. So Israel asks, what are my thoughts on oxycodone? I haven't really studied that enough to really have an opinion. But I'm wondering why you would be asking about oxycodone anyway. If you have to use it pharmaceutically, in a hospitalized setting, sure. Made by Ruben asks, Michael Linton says, hey. Oh, okay, you're just replying to that other person. Okay, Michael, so Made by Ruben says, what do you think about eating for longevity? That's a very fascinating topic that I've touched on time and time again. To put it simply, there's many factors involved in longevity. I've studied this extensively. I read all sorts of books on longevity. I've read the Blue Zone Solution by Dr. Butner. I've read the book by Dr. What's his name? Johnny Bowden wrote a book about longevity with like Jason Fung or something. What I can say is having a purpose in life seems to be a huge common factor amongst all centenarians that are interviewed. Not all of them, but most of them. Stress management seems to be a really big thing, in particular as you get older. Developing more empowering mindsets towards life. Like having a will to live, I think, is really big. As far as nutritional factors, I think maintaining metabolic health is huge. There's certain certain experts and scientists that believe metformin is like a miracle longevity drug. And I think, and personally, I would never advocate that for longevity or health span, right? Feeling as healthy as you can, as long as you can. Taking pharmaceutical drug doesn't make sense. Relying on it. All at the same time, though, but I think a lot of these people live in an old age. There's certain factors in their diet and lifestyle that are subtle, but they're powerful enough to maintain metabolic health throughout their old age, first of all. And I think that they have also telomere length has a lot to do with how old your mother was when she birthed you. I think that I read a study where if a mother birthed you under the age of 26 years old, that you have a much higher, like a 70% higher chance of living past 80 or something like that. As far as nutritional factors, obviously avoiding all junk food and processed refined foods is huge. You look at all of the Mediterranean diet and the Mediterranean people and the blue zones of the Mediterranean. So if you look at their diet when they're not during Lent, which is during the time when some of the blue zone data collected their food intake, unfortunately, you'll find that, and they leave out a lot of information in those books. It's ridiculous. A lot of these people, they eat nose-to-tail meat, but they also eat unrefined carbohydrates, whole carbohydrate foods, lots of beans and lentils and stuff like that in the Mediterranean. And they seem, and not as long as we think, but I think about 200 years, for 200 years, they were consuming a large amount of olive oil. So high monounsaturated fat content, lots of fish. Most of these regions eat a large amount of fish. They live on islands, live around water. And I think there might be something special about living close to water that promotes longevity, like living close to the ocean. People in California, the Seventh-day Adventists, right? Or the people of Loma Linda, the people of Costa Rica, the people in Okinawa, the people in Crete, like all of these people live close to water or live close to the ocean. I can't really think of a blue zone that doesn't, but maybe there are. I'm sure there are some. Then you look at Jack LaLanne, and this is a really good one here. Jack LaLanne, okay, he was fitness pioneer through the 1900s, died at the age of 97. While while working out, doing his normal 2-hour workout in his home gym. He had pneumonia, but he didn't go to the hospital because he believed in natural immunity. And he believed if he just worked hard enough in his gym that he would cure the pneumonia. But he dropped dead of respiratory failure due to pneumonia at age 97. That guy he believed in juicing and supplements. And he just exercised vigorously for most of his life. He did seem to promote a low-fat type of diet. He was vegetarian at one point. He was pescatarian at one point. But I think the big thing is that he's getting enough minerals in his diet. He's eating a nutrient-dense diet, give or take. And, obviously he's getting sufficient protein because he's so athletic. If he wasn't, he wouldn't be able to sustain his workout routines. And he worked out so vigorously. This guy would, swim for miles every single day, work out for 2 hours till failure, full body every single day. And his whole mantra was he's working out for life. If he would view life as the Olympics, and every workout was for the Olympics of life. And so I think that there's a number of ways that you can promote longevity. And I think vigorous exercise is one. I think a lot of these people who think, chronic cardio or exercising too much and, it's going to kill you. I think there's some truth to that if you're running marathons and this and that, or if you're deconditioned, or, if you're not eating enough calories, or, depending on the circumstance, there is a such thing as, extreme fatigue to the point of no return, but I think vigorous exercise promotes longevity. It promotes strength of all systems of the body. I think hormesis is probably correct. And I think anything that promotes hormesis is probably good for longevity as well. And I think removing the toxic bullshit most people eat. Removing the toxic bullshit and then strengthening your body through vigorous training and hormetic molecules, only from whole foods, not from supplements. You'll probably have the reverse effect. If you start eating a bunch of polyphenols and antioxidants through supplements. The studies on that, the credible studies show whole foods, you seem to get a beneficial effect. Pretty much every single study looking at, fruits and vegetables, in particular citrus fruits, cruciferous vegetables, and berries, seem to show a health promoting effect. And I've done videos on some of these polyphenols, including increasing brain-derived neurotrophic factor and a variety of other things that can improve your mood and your happiness, your cognitive ability. And they seem to promote longevity based on cohort studies. The closest you can get to a long-term dietary intervention trial is a cohort study. You can't do a long-term intervention trial. But the cohort studies show that those seem to be it. Now, if I were going to devise a protocol for longevity, I would exercise vigorously for about 2 hours a day, which I currently do about 2 to 4 hours a day, depending on the day. I would eat a diet that is, low glycemic load, high in animal protein. And if I had unlimited money, it would be like the highest wild game, grass-fed, wild caught fish from the cleanest oceans, organ meats from like the best animals. And I'd probably be eating a whole lot of medicinal herbs. I think things like, and the thing is high quality. I definitely believe there's some merit to things like ginseng, rhodiola, eleuthero or Siberian ginseng. I think, astragalus and traditional Chinese formulations. Gynostemma is huge. There's a wide range of tonic herbs that have been used traditionally to promote longevity. And there's a lot of science showing, a wide range of benefits, in particular, long-term immune strengthening effects, things like lymphocytes and T cells. And then, of course, there's also increasing telomere length. I believe I saw a study for Korean ginseng that showed that potential. I also think things like green tea, drink in moderation, depending on the person, obviously. And polyphenols found in green tea, I think, over time could also help to build your body in a similar fashion. So that's what I would say. It was kind of scattered, I guess, but I think that's pretty solid. And I think the best evidence suggests that those would be the most likely factors involved in increasing longevity. I also think moderate alcohol consumption promotes hormesis. I think the reason why we see these effects of like red wine and sake, a lot of the blue zones, they have coffee or tea, and they have alcohol as a staple in their lifestyle. And I think that promotes hormesis, and it also promotes relaxation. So those are pretty compelling. And I think that the weight of evidence is pretty heavy in favor of those factors. So why you simping treaty asks, I'll take this with a grain of salt. I know you're not a dentist, but I'm getting my wisdom teeth removed. Should I fast the first 3 days or eat? You're probably going to want to fast. I don't know what you want to do or what you should do, but it's going to hurt so bad you're probably going to want to fast. The doctor will probably tell you to drink liquids. So certain shakes. I would say completely avoid fruits and sugars and carbohydrates of all kind at first, and look into ketogenic smoothies made with coconut oil, coconut milk, protein powder, and these types of things, because I don't think you're going to be able to eat. That's going to be painful. Hannibella Lista asks, do you hate memes? In all honesty, I think some memes are funny, or at least entertaining. I guess if I can relate to them, but I think most people waste way too much time posting memes on Facebook. I think memes have destroyed Facebook and social media. I miss the day where I could scroll through my feed and not and see original content from my friends that they created themselves. I want to see people posting their own thoughts, their own life. I hate seeing all the shared posts, especially most of the posts are just like just looking for an argument, things like politics and all this other stuff. And typically people don't think for themselves. They don't create their own content. They don't create their own thoughts. And I think that there's like social engineering going on. And as a matter of fact, I think that's proven, social engineering. And I think this is also part of it. Instead of like creating like an opinion about politics and posting that, people just share other people's like opinions and long thought out messages. People don't think for themselves, don't create their own shit. They just share other people's opinions now. And I think that influences their own opinions. And they're in an echo chamber of memes and opinions. Now, so back to memes. Memes better than politics and other bullshit. But again, you know, I have friends that create memes. Do I hate memes? I can't say I hate them. I'm just disappointed. I feel like people are just like, you know, there's a like just like some people their whole life seems to just be, you know, them on Facebook sharing posts, and that's crazy now, right? Now these days, you know, I'm so fucking busy, I don't pay as much attention anymore. But yeah, I would like to see a whole lot less mindless behavior. And there's memes that are mindless and memes that are not, right? Now I'll just say, you know, I'll admit, since starting jujitsu, you know, I see a lot of funny jujitsu memes. You know, like there's one where a fat guy, like a super huge, like 300-pound dude, he's like a purple belt. No, he's a white belt. And he's just laying on top of a tiny little purple belt in side control position. Basically, you know, the purple belt, he's like probably like 130 pounds laying down. Big fat guy is just like laying on top of him. And the meme says, they said size doesn't matter, or size doesn't matter, they said. it's I can relate to some shit, right? I can relate to that, because it's terrible when you have, you know, a giant guy like laying on top of you, restricting your breathing and side control. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of memes. I'm just not. I want to see people's opinions. I want to see people sharing their own thoughts, creating their own posts. I want to see pictures of your life. You know, that's the whole purpose of Facebook. I don't want to fucking see a bunch of random ass people's opinions that you happen to share because it aligns with your bias. I don't care. You know, I do care about, you know, your life, you know, but whatever. I can't change that. I just use Instagram more because it's more what I like. What's your thoughts on ice baths? Ice baths, cold exposure, hormesis. That's what I think about ice baths. Amazing for muscle soreness, amazing for increasing your body's resiliency. Also really good for mental toughness. I wish I could do ice baths because I love, like, I can do, like, maybe if I had a giant pool full of ice, I could do it. See, my problem is I want to freeze my ass off. But I filled my whole bathtub up with ice at a certain point in time. And I jumped in there and my body heat literally melted the ice within like 3 minutes. And the water was not cold. Not even 3 minutes. It was more like 60 to 120 seconds. Like I jumped in there and it didn't feel cold. And before I knew it, the ice melted. So, you know, yeah, I wish I could do ice baths. I think they're great though, for depression, for muscle soreness, for promoting hormesis, for a whole bunch of things. I think cold showers are great, all of that. Why You Simping Treaty says, can you heal faster while fasting, like wounds and sickness, or does the body tell you what to do? Yeah, if you're sick, so a lot of organisms, like animals, they typically will naturally fast when they're sick. I think it depends on what you're trying to treat. If you have like a broken arm or something and you're trying to fast to promote healing, I think that's ridiculous. I definitely would say if you have the choice of hospital food or fasting, you should probably fast. But if you can consume, like consume foods that provide your body the nutrients that you need to repair whatever wound it is you're trying to heal. I don't think fasting for autophagy is a good idea for things like muscle growth, if that's your intention, or for things like wound healing and stuff like that. I think for breaking down cancer cells, it's good. Catabolizing cancer cells, it probably works very well. So do ketogenic diets. Again, go check out my interview with Leukemia Slayer, one of my friends who reversed leukemia on a ketogenic diet. Why you simping treaty asks, the apple cider water with water once a week cured my acid reflux. Thank you, Wolfgang. Yeah, apple cider vinegar once a week. So I don't know about once a week. I mean, that's pretty insane. I've had people who used apple cider vinegar every day before their meals, and they were on proton pump inhibitors, so it was pretty bad. And they found complete remission of their acid reflux. But once a week, that's extremely low frequency. I'm surprised that worked. Glad it helped though. Junior Grande. So guys, ask your questions down below. I'm running out of questions. So Junior Grande asks, so many vitamins and supplement companies nowadays, you don't know what to take. So a lot of that has to do with knowing what form of vitamin or mineral or supplement it is. Like in regards to herbs, for example, you want to be sure that, if you're taking a tincture, make sure that the tincture has the same compounds that you need to produce the effect you want, as like a capsule or what we call a concoction, which is like a herbal tea that you soak and brew and steep for a lot longer, 40 minutes or so. Companies, reputable companies like it, so there are some companies that I think are much more reputable and trustworthy than others. And there's things like Glassdoor.com that check things, not Glassdoor.com, Labdoor.com and various other things, Consumer Labs or whatever. So a brand that I've always used and I found very effective no matter what it is that I was taking, Now Foods. So Now Foods, they do contain fillers if that's something you're worried about. I don't think magnesium stearate is something that anyone should worry about. I don't think stearic acid is either. In fact, that's probably actually beneficial. So they do have some fillers and whatnot, but Now Foods, I have never taken a supplement that did not produce the expected effect it should. So I think Now Foods is good. Let's see. I think Nature's Way, I've experienced, expected effects from pretty much everything I've taken from their brand. Recently, I've been taking Life Extension brand Rhodiola, and I found it to be pretty powerful. And I believe Life Extension's probably a reputable brand, although I don't have as much experience with them. As far as herbal tinctures and whatnot, I found Herb Farm to be pretty potent. And these typically are the brands that you can typically find at your health food store. And I can find them at my local grocery store, actually. Because I live on a really good side of town, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I agree with you. And that's why it's important to pay for quality. Pay for quality. And if you can get loose leaf herbs rather than like supplemental tinctures and things, that's always the best route, because then you're getting what you paid for. Like ashwagandha. I know what ashwagandha powder tastes like, right? I have some right here. And this is like a cheap brand that might have lead in it, but that I got from my Abiduba Mart. And I love that place a lot, by the way. But I know what ashwagandha tastes like. But if you get like a capsule, you might not know unless you cut it open and taste it. So yeah, it is what it is. Let's see. Bright Path asks, have you seen the YouTube videos? Have you seen the YouTube videos from Juggernaut Training on weight training for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Yes, I have. I've watched every single video in Chad Wesley Smith's awesome series on weight training, strength training, and conditioning for Jiu-Jitsu. And I've watched his scientific principles for sports performance, the scientific pillars of sports performance. Lots of very informative videos summarizing, just putting sports or exercise science to a very easy to understand way. It's interesting. We have these, I have shit tons of textbooks. I have some sitting around right here, as a matter of fact. I have a book on anatomy and physiology, like literally right here in my living room. An old ass book on exercise physiology. Why the hell am I such a nerd, right? But the thing is, you learn so much easier just watching a video like that. Just watching lectures from experts, you learn faster without all the fluff, because those textbooks are like 400 pages. But yeah, I've watched that, and I think it's good. But I also I think that so fatigue management, recovery, and potentially overtraining, those have a lot of gray areas that need to be discussed in greater detail. Maybe I'll make a video about that in particular, because we still don't really fully understand overtraining. We still don't fully understand overtraining and what it is exactly. We only have ideas. And there are some studies where they measure cortisol to testosterone ratio. But I'll get into that here in a bit, especially if I run out of questions. So Larry Levianus asks, any idea on relief from tinnitus? So there is an herb that I had seen just randomly when I was looking through the research on the herb. I had seen a study on tinnitus, and I had seen it mentioned quite frequently as being used traditionally for tinnitus. I don't remember which herb that was. It was one that I was recently taking, I think. It might have been rhodiola, maybe. I don't think it was. Tinnitus. Might have been bacopa. I don't think it was. I'll look into that, and I might make a video on it. If you can add me on Instagram, Larry Levius, add me on Instagram at Wolfgang Lozana, and try to remind me like every 3 days if you can, and I will update you. So I'll look into it, and I'll let you know, because there was an herb that seemed to be pretty effective for tinnitus. I wasn't looking in particular for tinnitus, so I didn't really pay too much attention to it, so I don't remember. But also sodium deficiency can increase symptoms of tinnitus, and magnesium deficiency. So you might want to look into that. And I would also wonder what your overall dietary intake is. But there's a variety of things that can cause tinnitus, and it's not all, supplements and herbs, right? As a savior. Why you simping treaty asks, can eye bags be the result of vitamin loss, or I guess vitamin deficiency? I mean, it's possible, although I haven't really seen any convincing evidence or anything of that nature. But it's possible. Was it ginkgo biloba? So Molar J says ginkgo biloba works for tinnitus, and it might have been ginkgo biloba that I was researching, but it doesn't spring up, but it might have been. And I would say you should take ginkgo biloba either way, because there's a wide spectrum of benefits from ginkgo biloba, other than just tinnitus. Also, I think gotu kola. I think trying a combination of ginkgo biloba, gotu kola, and bacopa is probably a good idea. And Gotu Cola has similar effects to ginkgo biloba, and they tend to work in synergy. But yeah, ginkgo biloba is definitely one of those. Probably due to increasing circulation up into that area. Let's see here. What else do we have? Can eye bags result? Yeah, I mean, if you have eye bags, if you have bags under your eyes, get more sleep. There's that whole idea of like keto eyes. I don't know about that. And also bags under your eyes. If you're not having any like severe symptoms or any noticeable symptoms other than that, you probably just want to get some sleep. But I'm sure it's possible. I mean, there's a lot of mysterious symptoms that can be caused by all sorts of things. Let's see. Timothy Jenkins asks, is betaine HCl okay if I'm consuming high amount of protein? So betaine hydrochloride, I would say, is, so if you take it, you want to take betaine only before meals or with meals, only with heavy, animal protein meals. And, I like apple cider vinegar much better. I would say apple cider vinegar 20 minutes before consuming animal protein is a good idea, or maybe 10 minutes, 10 to 15, like maybe 12 minutes or so before eating animal protein. Slugging down a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in some water. Apple cider vinegar with the mother, unfiltered, unpasteurized. That is a great idea to treat low stomach acid. Betaine HCl, you can use it in a similar way, but yeah, I prefer apple cider vinegar. Timothy Jenkins asks, what supplements are good for circulation? So ginger, lots and lots of ginger is the number one. Obviously, ginkgo biloba increases circulation, but it has a wide spectrum of other benefits too. But ginger is the most immediate. You brew some ginger tea with some ground ginger, and you will feel feel the circulation increase drastically. Garlic is great, preferably if you chop it up and you let it sit for about 15 minutes. That will stimulate circulation, but your breath will smell like shit. Gotu Cola, ginkgo biloba. And there's one extreme one that I don't recommend, and that's yohimbe. And what that does is stimulates your heart to produce more blood, per contraction, but it'll feel like your heart's going to explode. Not really something I recommend these days, but I used to take it and it was terrible. Like I felt just like I was on, this is the craziest stimulant ever. Bright Path asks, thoughts on Bulgarian style lifting. So Bright Path, all these questions you're asking makes me wonder if I know you personally in real life, because these are questions that people who know me in real life would be asking me. So I think, I don't, okay, so thoughts on Bulgarian lifting. I've actually done Bulgarian lifting. I did a program multiple times for Bulgarian lifting. I've done deadlift every day. I've done of course I've done squat every day. I've done bench press every day. So I've done, what you can call Bulgarian lifting. Some people say it's not Bulgarian, bro. You weren't coached by Abhay Jagoff or whatever. Yeah, so I've done Bulgarian lifting. So let's see, deadlift every day. Back in 2016, I took my deadlift from 2016. I took my deadlift from like 405 up to like, I don't know, I think it was like 460 within a matter of 4 weeks. That's not really impressive, just because I was, 400 pounds, you just past novice level, and I was about 185 pounds or so at the time. So 400 pounds. So I gained 60 pounds on my deadlift in 4 weeks doing deadlift every day. I guess if that's that's good. I mean, my lower back felt like shit, but you know, I was, you know, I had it was a 400-pound deadlift, you know. Now, if I was deadlifting 500 pounds and I added 60 pounds, that would be more impressive. But yeah, so my experience on that, you know, went from 400 pounds to 460 pounds deadlifting every day. Or it might have been 3 times a week, actually. It might have been 3 times a week. Okay, so that wasn't quite Bulgarian. That was heavy, high frequency, and I was deadlifting to a max 3 times a week. Let's see, what else? Bench press every day was interesting. So it was, when was it? August 2019 or July 2019, leading up into August. I did 2 weeks where I bench pressed and squatted every day on top of doing Muay Thai. And what happened? So I went from pause benching at the time 225 pounds all the way up to 265 pounds. Okay. I think it was 260 pounds paused, and then the next day I did 265 pounds touch and go. And I could have kept it going, but I had a trip to Vegas. My plan was to keep it going for 6 to 8 weeks to get I was going to get 315 pounds because every single day I had a PR on bench press every fucking day. And it seemed like I was going to get 315 within a matter of 2 months. But I went to Vegas. And so that was a whole, like, you know, like 4 5 days of vacation. And they had a gym there and everything, but I just didn't want to. I want to give myself some rest. When I came back, I still had the strength. I was pause benching 245 for sets of 5 when I came back. So my strength didn't go down. But I get this thing where I start to think about overtraining syndrome and overtraining and yada yada, and all these silly boys telling me I'm going to overtrain, they get to me. And so I just, I'm like, fuck it. I don't want to like burn out my CNS, which, you know, on one side of things, yeah. So that's the whole 40 pounds on my pause bench, you know, while I was doing interval training on the heavy bag, Muay Thai, you know, I was sprinting intervals and crap like that. And I was also doing squat every day at the same time. And, you know, at that time, you know, the whole year I wasn't really training as much for powerlifting. So my numbers started out pretty low, but, my squat didn't go up very much at that time, probably because of all the sprinting and Muay Thai I was doing, but my bench press did. And the key that I noticed was if I went for different types of PRs every day, like with squat, I just squatted to a max every day, and it didn't really seem to work as well. But with bench press, I would do pause bench. I would try to go for a 3 rep max, a 5 rep max, whatever PR I can get. You know, even if it's on a variation, and that seemed to work really well. And then, of course, I trained for my Muay Thai fight after I got back from Vegas. That was another thing. I accepted the Muay Thai fight, like, I think within the next 2 months. So it was really shaky. But, yeah, I was thinking about starting Bulgarian method again. You know, I was actually thinking about it last week. I've actually been rereading Squat Every Day. If you haven't read Squat Every Day, you should read Squat Every Day because it goes really in depth into fatigue management and this idea of overtraining and all that. And, you know, it's interesting. You could feel tired as hell, but continue to make performance gains. And your testosterone can go through the shitter, and you can have high cortisol and all the symptoms of overtraining, but you can continue to make strength gains, maxing every day, even though you're demonstrating clinical overtraining syndrome. Yeah, it's crazy shit when you read that fucking book. So, and I'm rereading right now. So before I go to bed, I read it until I fall asleep. Really good stuff. So right now I'm training, you know, on average 2 hours a day minimum jiu-jitsu 4 to 5 times a week. I do personal training at a commercial gym now, so I'm always training clients throughout the day. I'm super busy. I do security work on the side if for some extra money every now and then. Then I try to make YouTube videos. But man, it's been so hard lately. And then I do the 2 hours of jiu-jitsu from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. Sometimes I'll do a third class at 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. But that shit, man, is crazy. So it's hard to find time for, and then of course under this whole idea of like, fatigue management and overtraining, I fit the bill for overtraining. Like, if you consider all of the exercise I do in a given day, on top of my pretty damn busy schedule, and then of course if I start to do like a ketogenic style of eating, most coaches or most sports, even other athletes. There was a boxer that I was training with. He was actually a coach, and he claimed he trained Jesse James Leha. And that guy was badass, but he was all scared for me that I was gonna fry my CNS and commit overtraining syndrome and all this crap. I'm the classic example. Like, if overtraining exists, I should be experiencing it out of all people, because I'm training like a professional fighter on top of my busy schedule. Anyway, right now, like last week, I started like my first week of like 5-3-1, but I'm probably I have the hardest time sticking to 5-3-1 because it tends to be too boring but big, and I can make my accessory movements and stuff more exciting. I can make it work for me, but I want to max every day. So I might try the Bulgarian method as an experiment. That might actually be the motivation I've been needing. Make more videos on that, because when I did my carnivore experiment, when I first started on carnivore back in, November 2018 or whatever, it gave me a lot of motivation because I was documenting like a crazy experiment that most people weren't doing, especially because I have the unique aspect that I'm an athlete, not eating carbs. And that was very motivating. So now I'm thinking, you know what, maybe I'll do carnivore and intermittent fasting and Bulgarian and 2 hours a day of jiu-jitsu, probably more. I'll probably try hitting the morning class more often. So I don't know, we'll see. But I love doing lots of volume though. That's the other thing. I love doing lots of volume. So maybe cycling in, like rotating volume. I'm thinking maybe clean and jerk every day, squat every day, and bench or overhead press every day. And then I'll, at the same time, maybe also have like a push day and a pull day for like hypertrophy work. So like Monday and Tuesday, I could do hypertrophy and the Bulgarian method. I don't even know. I don't fucking know, because I love doing volume, but I'll tell you, I'm very interested in starting the Bulgarian method again. But I'm just so fucking I'm just crazy. When I start to get in this vibe of like fuck overtraining or whatever, I go ham. It's bad. Yeah, it's fucking bad. And I actually proposed it as a joke to Rob Wolf, because he was talking about he made a post saying like that there's no such thing as too much strength training. And I find that interesting because he himself only does like a low dose of strength training like twice a week if you look at his workout logs and things, and then jiu-jitsu when he can. But he says that there's no such thing as too much strength training, and he advocates that message. So I it was a kind of like a joke comment down. I said, all right, Rob, I like the way you're thinking. I guess I'm going to do deadlift, squat, and bench press every single day on top of jiu-jitsu. But yeah, he said that sounds horrible. Anyway, yeah, I will probably go ahead and do that. Maybe if I do, I'll document it. I'll let you guys know all about it. So do you guys have any other questions? Do y'all have any other questions? Definitely ask them down below. Interesting stuff. People, yeah, go ahead and ask me your questions down below, you guys. Yeah. So I don't know how I would do that. I think maybe he'll just do, the squat, deadlift, or squat, clean and jerk, snatch, overhead press, bench. Rotate those in and out. Just make sure I do like a pull off the ground, some type of squat, and then some type of press every single day. Oh, my mom, how can we tip you? So my mom is on chat, texting goods. Honestly, I'm not sure how we can tip me on YouTube. Oh, is there a money thing? Oh, it says insert ad. I'm honestly not sure. Is there like a super chat feature or something like that? I need to figure that out. Yeah, I have Cash App. I do have a PayPal now too, but I do have a Cash App. But I don't have my phone around, so I'm not able to post that right now. But I have a Cash App. Oh, there it is. Thanks, Mom. So that's my Cash App, you guys, if you want to tip me. I definitely appreciate any and all donations. So Wolfgang Lozana on Cash App, if you guys are interested in donating. Let's see here. What just happened? Why is it doing that? There we go. Yeah, good night, Bright Path. Good night, man. It was good talking to you, good answering your question, because those are awesome questions. Very interesting indeed. All right, you all, if there's any questions at all that you guys have interested in anything, especially relating to health science, I will definitely answer them. We've covered a lot of topics so far. So ask me your questions, you guys. Six people watching right now. I'm sure you guys are curious about something. Ask me anything and everything, you guys. So let's see here. So I guess I'll just kind of like, Molar J asks, any thoughts on dating women? That's a funny question. Any thoughts on dating women? So first of all, really it depends on the person, and it depends on your experience with women. Any thoughts on dating women? It depends on the person. It depends on your experience. If you have not really had a long-term relationship before, it's probably a good idea to experience that, but you're not going to be able to experience a long-term relationship until you at least play the field a little bit and date around. My suggestion to most people, especially guys who are under the age of 40, is to, especially now we have dating apps and crap, which I don't like. I prefer talking to girls in person. Date around, play the field, get to know women, be empathetic, like I should probably make a separate video on all of that. Stay grounded in your values. You gotta definitely be comfortable with yourself. You gotta find what you're passionate about and dedicate your life to it. and make sure that you have a clear idea of what you want in life and what you want in a girl. Basically establishing what we call values, what you value in another person, what you value in friendships, what you value in career paths and things like that. And only then are you able to actually like be successful in relationships with women or dating with women or really with anything and everything. And as crazy as a lot of people might think it sounds, I don't know, asshole-ish or something, but you should look at dating at like buying a car. Basically, you know, you definitely, when you date women, you don't want to look at them as if they are something that you're going to automatically marry. Like you're not just going to take a car and buy it right away. So you need to date, you need to interview them, you need to figure out like who they are and what they're about. Almost always though, you have this dynamic where you just met the person. And so there's going to be validation seeking a lot of times from both parties, but especially from girls. They really want to impress the guy. They don't want to make a bad impression. And so it's very hard to know exactly who the girl really is in the first couple weeks of the relationship. Typically I would take quite a long time, couple weeks, couple months to get to know the girl and date her before making it official. Most people rush too quickly. And so, as long as you stay dedicated to your passion and don't let the girl take you off your passion, then you should be able to go through it with no regrets. I'll have to make a whole nother topic. Maybe I'll continue rambling about it after I answer my mom's question. My mom asks, what's the best way to get rid of belly fat? So, best way to get rid of belly fat in particular. So belly fat is also known as visceral fat. Visceral fat is fat tissue beneath the viscera. And so this is typically associated with metabolic syndrome. Typically, there's a distinction between belly fat and systemic fat around the body. You could restrict calories. That's what a lot of people do because they want to eat junk food. You could still lose weight and lose fat and eat junk food as long as you starve yourself and restrict your calories. But I think the science says that it is metabolic syndrome that is mostly responsible for visceral fat and mostly responsible for increasing fat in the belly, in the gut in particular. And one of the reasons why you see, increased belly fat in most middle-aged people in general, as you get older, belly fat seems to increase, especially after you hit your 20s, is because it takes time for insulin resistance and, even a low level of insulin resistance, it takes time for that to manifest as belly fat, excessive belly fat, and full-blown diabetes. So low-carb diet obviously is the best way. Intermittent fasting is a good way. Reducing the glycemic load of your diet is a great way. Removing all refined foods in general is essential. Reducing the amount of linoleic acid in the diet. Linoleic acid is the primary fatty acid found in vegetable oils, polyunsaturated omega-6 fat that is highly inflammatory. And there's a lot of evidence actually that suggests it decreases insulin sensitivity independent of carbohydrate intake. So now there's even low-carb doctors that are advocating the removal of foods like high-fat chicken, for example, and even things like bacon, because they have, they have a higher concentration of linoleic acid than other meats, but not nearly as much as vegetable oils. But the point here is there are specific foods that seem to contribute towards insulin resistance, and insulin resistance seems to be the underlying factor involved in belly fat in particular. After a year or so of reversing insulin resistance. I mean, pretty much every popular diet that's been clinically proven to reverse insulin resistance allows you to add back in carbohydrates over time. For example, one of the books that I recommend to health professionals, I recommended this to my therapist, and I've had a client that was a doctor recently. It's called The New Atkins for a New You. And there's a specific version by Jeff Volok and Stephen Finney, PhD, registered dietitian and medical doctor. And, they've written over 200 studies. They conducted over 200 studies between each other on the science behind low carb living and insulin resistance. And I recommend that style of eating to people generally because at first you start off with under 20 grams per day, and you can slowly start to add back carbs as you become more insulin sensitive over time. So carbohydrate restriction, if you want, you can control your calories, but you're going to be hungry all the time. Intermittent fasting, and obviously all forms of exercise, but the best way would be vigorous exercise, as vigorous as possible. Molar J, are you still there? If you are, I'd be happy to go into deeper detail on my thoughts. As a matter of fact, ask me a more specific question about dating women. What is it about dating women that you want to know? And I will go into much deeper detail on that. I'll tell you another thing about dating in general. But when you start to get into an actual relationship, so when you get into relationships, so I look at relationships as, I see potential for this person to be a worthwhile partner, right? Like I actually want to be seen in public with this person. I want to be associated with this person. Like when you date a girl, typically, at least the way I see it is you're like friends with benefits at first. You're like friends that are attracted to each other romantically. You're not quite an item yet, what they call. Good night, Mom. I love you too, Mom. I love you too. But if you, my mom's awesome, just so everyone knows. I love my mom, and she's played a vital role in molding me into who I am today, and I love her a lot. That's another thing, you guys. Dating women, if you're a guy, you can't really care what, people are going to judge you. Like, oh, girl's going to judge me, think I'm a mama's boy for saying I love my mom like on a live stream. If a girl has a problem with some fundamental part of your life, especially something like loving your mom, then you probably should, she's probably crazy. You probably shouldn't date that girl. That's a big thing. Now, I think that there are some times, some instances, some situations where, the whole mama's boy thing is probably a negative thing. And what I mean is if you're, living with your mom until you're like, I don't know, like 50 years old, even though she doesn't need you to take care of her or anything, if she's taking care of you into your older ages, I think that that's probably not a positive thing. I think that it makes a lot of sense for a woman or a girl to be concerned if her boyfriend is like, living with his mom into his like, 20s and 30s. But I know a lot of guys who do it, especially here in San Antonio, because a lot of my friends are, Hispanic or, whatever. Pretty much all the girls I dated are Mexican. They're from Mexico, like legitimately, because I love Latinas. And a lot of their family members, their uncles and stuff like that, they all live in the same house for generations. So it's actually pretty common. But I think that there's some instances, but yeah, you should be able to love your mom and not have a girl judge you. You guys have any other questions? You gonna just listen to me ramble about why girls should let you love your mom? Like, ask me some fucking questions, you guys. Come on, you all. You damn creepers. So let's see here. Yeah, let's see. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about caloric restriction, since there's 5 people just like literally like staring at me, not asking me questions, which I appreciate, everyone. So caloric restriction, energy balance. So obviously it is a fact. It's been proven with metabolic war studies that reducing calories will induce weight loss. Now, the thing is, that doesn't mean that that's the only way, because there's a number of other things, other protocols that people could do that have not been tested in metabolic ward studies, such as, properly formulated ketogenic diets, or eating an insane amount of protein. Actually, there actually as recently was an intervention trial that came out showing up to 3 grams per kilogram or something crazy, or 3 grams per pound of lean mass a day resulted in double the weight loss of half that protein. I'm not to find that study because that's pretty substantial, but protein does have a significantly increased effect on energy expenditure. Another thing is a calorie is not a calorie. A calorie is not a calorie. It's a stupid thing to say. A calorie is a calorie. Like maybe in regards to thermodynamics, sure. But in regards to an actual human being and weight loss, protein, if you don't eat adequate amounts of protein, let's say you have 2,000 calories worth of, let's just say white rice, I guess. Let's say white rice. 2,000 calories worth of white rice. Then you have 2,000 calories worth of ground beef. Who is going to have a better body composition after a year of eating that way and doing the same training program? Probably the person who's eating adequate protein. Now, the white rice person's going to run into deficiencies a long, long time before that ever happens. So how about we look at 2,000 calories worth of bananas, right? Let's say you do the banana diet, right? The 30 bananas a day diet, like Freely the Banana Girl. And then you compare them to the same calories from ground beef. And you put them on a weight training regime. Probably the person eating 30 bananas a day, they're not going to gain the same amount of muscle as the person eating the same amount of calories from ground beef. It has nothing to do with plants versus, animal foods, but it has everything to do with the fact that you need adequate protein to maintain muscle mass. Now, you'll probably lose a lot of weight with the banana diet, but a lot of that's going to be lean mass and probably bone tissue as well. And if you look at a lot of these long-term like raw vegan dieters, I know it's an extreme diet, but I mean, if you're going to say a calorie is a calorie and calories are all that matters and all this crap, and it doesn't matter what you eat as long as you restrict your calories, like, do you really want to be the potato strong guy who looks like he's deteriorating? Probably not. That's not healthy. That's not an equivalent body recomposition transformation. It's not a positive body recomposition transformation. So adequate protein is essential, and that alone debunks the idea that a calorie is a calorie. Sure, you'll lose weight, but a lot of that will be muscle if you don't get enough protein. Let's see. So another thing is when you consume a ketogenic diet, for example, your body it changes a multitude of metabolic processes, completely shifts your metabolism from burning exogenous carbohydrate into now producing glucose endogenously from fatty acids, as well as ketones from fatty acids. And so your body can actually pull the glycerol backbone of triglycerides from your fat stores, and it can convert glycerol into glucose, and it can also convert body fat into ketones. Do you think burning, like creating endogenous fuel, creating all your energy needs from body fat, do you think that that's going to increase or decrease energy expenditure or have no effect? It's probably going to increase your energy expenditure. And again, I mentioned earlier in this live stream that there are a number of studies that compare unrestricted low carb diets to calorie controlled high carb diets, and they found that the unrestricted low carb diets do just as good or even better than the calorie controlled high carb weight loss diet. That's pretty crazy that you can eat unlimited amount, like however much food you want, as long as you control your carbs. And in these meta-analysis and dietary intervention trials and population studies, the unrestricted low carb diets do just as good or even better. So I think there's a lot to say. There's a lot more discussion that needs to go on in regards to fat loss. Another thing is adaptive thermogenesis and things like downregulation of the thyroid in response to caloric restriction. You know, a lot of these people that are scared of like tanking their hormones on low carb diets and thyroid problems on low carb diets, you know, you only see that in people who don't eat enough fat and don't eat enough calories. You see the same thing in people who do long-term calorically restricted diets, especially when they're restricting too much calories too soon, or they're exercising vigorously in combination with a low-calorie diet. I mean, it's not the low carbs, it's the fact that people have less appetite, they naturally eat less calories, and so it's easier to run into those types of problems and naturally restrict calories, which can create those thyroid problems. But nonetheless, restricting calories can actually slow weight loss through adaptive thermogenesis. There's a lot of questions, though, whether it's significant or not. Like, how significant is it actually? So with all that being said, you know, if you want to eat a bunch of junk food but still lose weight, you can do that and just track your calories and weigh everything. Otherwise, yeah, you could do alternate day fasting, like my client who lost 100 pounds in 4 weeks doing alternate day fasting, and just eat whatever you want, like every other day. Although I wouldn't recommend that. I don't think advocating, you know, these addictive junk foods, allowing your clients to eat those things is a good idea, because it's just unsustainable. Any attempt at restricting these addictive junk foods, you know, for weight loss, I think is unsustainable. I think it's good to get people off these addictive, hyperpalatable foods and work towards regulating their hunger signals. That's what I think. Vince, my dog Vince, asks, do fish get thirsty? I don't know, and I don't care. But I'll eat a fish if it's wild caught. All right, you guys, so I'm going to give you guys about 1 minute and 30 seconds for y'all to ask me more questions down below. And if I don't start seeing some good questions down below, I'm just going to go to sleep, because I'm pretty tired and I wasn't planning on doing a long live stream anyway. But it's been great so far. We've covered a lot of great topics, and I feel like I was pretty on point for this live stream. So ask your questions and I will answer them. All right, you guys, you have 40 seconds to ask me your questions. Ask me more questions. Otherwise, I will end the live stream. All right, looks like I'm going to end the live stream, you guys. So hope you guys had an amazing night. Hope you all enjoyed all of the amazing questions I answered tonight. Lots of good questions on weight loss and fat loss and stuff like that. There was a lot of good dialogue and discussion back and forth about exercise, and in particular, the Bulgarian method in lifting and sports conditioning. Lots of interesting questions about, longevity, the carnivore diet, getting adequate nutrition from eating nothing but meat. Leave your questions and comments down below, and look forward to the next live stream. I'm going to try to do these every Sunday evening at probably around 6 to 9 p.m., around 8 p.m. or so, Sundays, Central Time, because I live in Texas. All right, you guys. Talk to y'all later.